Like people, cars come in all shapes and sizes. From long to short, tall or wide, some are meant for cities, some for farms. Some cars have 4 wheels, some 6, and there's even some with 3. Just about the only thing all cars have in common is that they drive on land. Right? Wait. The idea of amphibious vehicles really picked up during World War II, with both the Germans and the Allies building all kinds of wacky things to try and win the war. After the war, people had something unheard of back then: disposable income. That led to all kinds of wild consumer products, including vehicles. Enter the Amphicar, the world's first consumer amphibious car, available to anyone with an extra $2,800. Launched in 1961, it had a top speed of 70 miles per hour on the road and 7 knots on the water. Its Triumph-built 1.2-liter inline-4 made a whopping 43 horsepower and sat behind the driver, and the car only came as a convertible. People loved them, and many pushed them to their limit, crossing the English Channel and even traveling over 400 miles down the Yukon River. Even President Lyndon B. Johnson owned one, and he would terrify passengers that didn't know the car was a boat. After the Amphicar left production in 1962, it was decades before another company put an amphibious car into production. In 1985, German oil and gas pipeline company Rheinauer Maschinen- und Armaturenbau, God, I hope I got that right, produced the Amphi Ranger. Though it looks similar to a Mercedes G-Wagon, they share no parts, with later models of the Amphi Ranger using Ford V6s. Improving on the Amphicar, it had 4 doors, 4 seats, and 4-wheel drive. Meant to service oil wells in remote regions, the civilian version was not a success, with less than 100 being built. This is the Dutton Mariner, introduced in 1990. With its fiberglass hull and modern drivetrain, it was a spiritual successor to the Amphicar. It had more cargo and passenger space, and a bit more power, but was still woefully slow on both land and water. It might be because it was based on that era's Ford Fiesta. Just a couple of years later, the hobby car B612 hit the streets with its bulbous fiberglass body, folding seats, and all-wheel drive. It has all the quirks you'd expect of a French car, including using a joystick for steering on water and an electric sliding windshield. It improved on earlier amphibious designs by using hydro-pneumatic suspension to retract the wheels for less drag and using hydrojets for propulsion. Despite the modern engineering, it still managed to be slower than the Amphicar. In 2003, a company called Gibbs Amphibians put the Aquata into production. Think of it like a Miata that's also a boat. Seating for 3, like in a McLaren F1, and a 2.5-liter V6 mounted behind the seats drive the rear wheels or the Hydrojet. It too had retractable wheels, and by appearance, could be confused as a successor to the hobby car. Except the Aquata was far superior to any amphibious vehicle before it. This rich guy even used one to cross the English Channel. American company Watercar unveiled their Panther amphibious Jeep in 2013, after they claimed the record for fastest amphibious vehicle a few years earlier at 60 miles per hour on water. The Panther is a little slower, but still manages 45 miles per hour on water using a Honda V6 mounted in the back, which is plenty enough to pull a water skier. Unfortunately, its Jeep looks couldn't help its woeful off-road ability. Though you can't buy a Panther anymore, Watercar still exists today, selling the Watercar H1, an original Humvee converted to amphibious vehicle using all the same technology, but adding true off-road ability with 4-wheel drive. Gibbs is still around too, though rather than amphibious cars, they sell street-legal trikes and off-road ATVs. The TerraQuad can rip down a trail, then splash into a lake, transforming into a tiny speedboat. Gibbs also sells possibly the coolest amphibious vehicle of all time. The Bi-Ski is a motorcycle that can turn into a jet ski in under 5 seconds, going up to 80 miles per hour on land and 37 miles per hour on the water. At a bit over 500 pounds and with only 55 horsepower from its 2-cylinder engine, it's not a canyon carver, but it can still go places no other motorcycle can. While they never went into production, Swiss company Rinspeed made some of the most radical amphibious vehicles in the world, with the Splash riding over the water rather than on it. Its hydrofoils would fold down from the sides and lift it out of the water, helping it to a top speed of 30 miles per hour. And they too used it to set a record for crossing the English Channel. A few years later, Rinspeed made the Scuba, taking inspiration from some old spy movie. They turned the Lotus into a submarine, replacing the gas engine with electric drivetrain and sealing everything up. Unfortunately, its speed on land is now just 75 miles per hour, and it can only go 2 miles per hour underwater. But it's a submarine. Most cars are stuck driving on land, cruising down the highway or bouncing over rough terrain. But some cars can take you pretty much anywhere, except the sky, right? Oh, come on!